Hello and welcome to this lesson. My name is Edmond. In this lesson, we'll look at the second way of addressing the ask of the slab. In our previous lesson, we looked at manipulating the OSPF forwarding address to ensure that R1 had equal course paths through R2 and R3 to reach the loopback 0 interface in R4. Before our intervention in our previous lesson, R1 had a single path to reach R4, and that was the path through R2. This was because the forwarding address on R1 for the type 5 LSA was 24.24.24.4, and when R1 recurses or resolves how to reach that, it went through R2. Recall again, the type 7 to 5 translation in itself is a control plane construct. What actually determines the path the traffic takes is the forwarding address. So just as a recap, on R4 we did configure interface loopback 1 and put it in area 34. Once we did this, R1 had, let's look at the database first. Once we did this, R1 had the forwarding address as 40.40.40.40 because now the first condition was met. The first condition in selecting the forwarding address, we had a loopback interface in area 34. And because R1 had two equal course paths to reach our forwarding address, we ended up having our two equal course paths to reach 4.4.4.4. Now we'll look at another way of achieving this load sharing or two equal course path requirement. So we'll go to R4 and we'll remove the interface loopback 1. So if we remove the interface loopback 1 and we come back to R1, the forwarding address has now gone back to 24.24.24.4. This was where we were before. Now, the forwarding address we said was chosen because without the loopback interface, the router looks at the OSPF interfaces and it picks the first one, which means if we go and shut Ethernet 0/0 right now, and Ethernet 0/1 becomes the only interface available, R1 will then use that as the forwarding address. Because we have this forwarding address now, traffic would go through R3 to reach this. So let's go back and unshut this. So let's ensure that. So let's look at first what our interfaces look like. So 24 Ethernet 0/0 is still the first one, so this should go back to that. All right, now the second way of addressing this lab requirement whilst working within the constraints is we suppress the forwarding address when translation happens. Together with that, we tell both R2 and R3 to do the type 7 to 5 translation. Recall, by default, only one of the ABRs does that, which is a router with a higher router ID. So let's begin with that. If we go to R2, we go to OSPF, we say area 34, NSSA, got our options. So translate type 7 always. So you have two options. These are the two options we use. First option is that regardless of what your router ID is, we want you to translate type 7 to 5. So let's go to R3 and do same. So router OSPF 1 area 34 NSSA translate type 7 always. At this point, all that we've done is tell both R2 and R3 to do the translation, but we have not manipulated the forwarding address in any way. So if we go to R1 and we check our OSPF database, for that prefix, it says R2 is advertising this to us. That is okay. R3 is still advertising this to us. So you have both R2 and R3 advertising this to us. But both of them have the forwarding address as 24.24.24.4. Then again, recall, type 7 to 5 translation is a control plane construct. What actually determines how traffic is forwarded in the data plane is the forwarding address. So if we still check the route table of R1, or 4.4.4.4, it says, look, nothing has changed, because although I have these two LSAs, both R2 and R3 advertising this to me, I will still have to recurse to 24.24.24.4, which would be through R2. That's why I said, second option, we do two things. Ask both R2 and R3 to do the type 7 to 5 translation, and also suppress the forwarding address. Now let's look at what happens if we suppress the forwarding address. So we go back to router OSPF 1 area 34 NSSA, then translate type 7, then we suppress the forwarding address. Then we do same on R3. Router OSPF 1 area 34 NSSA, translate type 7, let's suppress the forwarding address. Now if we come back to R1 and look at our OSPF database, it says we still have R2 advertising this to us, we have R3 advertising this to us, but our forwarding address is suppressed. So we are using our default of 0.0.0.0. When this happens, the routers will then have to think of, okay, because I don't have an explicit forwarding address, I then have to forward through the router that originated or that advertised, to be specific, this prefix to me, because they didn't actually tell me any specific way to forward it. And because they didn't, my only option is to go through the one who told me about the prefix. So R1 in this case, because two separate routers advertised this, R2 and R3, and is then able to, so if we recurse and look at show IP route for 2.2.2.2, it says, well, this goes through R2, and we have another one that goes through R3. Because of that, if I look at my route table now, for 4.4.4.4, I have two equal cost paths. And if I should do a trace to 4.4.4.4, source it from 1.1.1.1, I expect to go through these two paths. So we have two ways of doing this. One was very simple, just influence the forwarding address. And the other one was ask both routers to actually do the type 7 to 5 translation. And on top of that, suppress the forwarding address. Now, like any implementation in networking, there are pros and there are cons. There are specific use cases. So we'll look at another lesson where we compare these two options. What are their pros? What are their cons? What are their specific use cases? Note that in this challenge, we had specific constraints. So there are other ways to address this if we didn't have any constraints. So as we see here, now our traffic is going through both R2 and R3. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this lesson and learned some key things from it. Hope to see you in my next lesson. Thank you.